Hi, my name is Harley Miln, and I'm the creator of the 50x Challenge. My goal is to try and travel to all 50 states and also fly a paramotor, also known as powered paragliding or PPG, in all 50 states. And in addition to traveling and flying the paramotor to all 50 states, my goal is to also try and raise $1,000 towards charities in each of those states for any charity that someone would like to donate to.
So this is in Hilo, Hawaii, and is my very first landing there. As you see, it's a downhill landing, which is kind of tricky.
Harley flying at Rio Vista, California. 50-state tour. November 2019.
Got to see my buddy Don here in Nevada. This is just outside of Sparks, this place called Spanish Springs. And this is out in Wanamaker, I think is the correct pronunciation. I was waiting for Jeremy Huff to come join me out here, and so I got to fly the Snake for the first time. This is the first landing, not amazing, but I was glad to be on my feet. And my brakes were a little long and later it needed an adjustment, which I didn't figure out till Florida. This particular video is actually from a different flight that I actually did in Oregon, but nonetheless. Idaho, man, this was a huge privilege. Sean Schumer and Miles Dasher, base jump, and definitely, I've been skydiving, but this was pretty damn cool. And the fact that these two gentlemen were there was just something amazing. I had made arrangements with Sean to photograph me, and then he decided that he was going to fly with me, and so he captured a lot of the footage that I have, and lo and behold, so did Miles Dasher show up, and so the three of us were flying in and out the canyon here under the bridge, and just having an all great time. And then of course the awesome foot drag on the Snake River here with the Dudak Snake. So just an amazing sort of state to do, and have so much fun doing it here with these amazing guys. For those of you that don't know, Miles Dasher actually trained Tucker Gott how to base jump, and this is Twin Falls. So I went on to Utah. I got to hang out with my buddy Andrew Payne here. This was a long run, especially at 6,800 feet, and I actually failed the launch before managing to get up. And so I got to do this location and Thelma and Louise Point, and also Corona Arch. While I didn't actually fly through the arch, I did get to hang out in these different places, which the scenery is just amazing. So Colorado, I actually stopped off at an airport called Aztec, I think it was, just before this, but I was driving down the highway and saw this and just pulled over, and this is my memory for Colorado, because it was just such an opportunity to just go fly something cool that not everybody does. New Mexico's not very much happened here, but as you see, I chopped a couple lines here. Actually didn't chop them off, but just damaged them. And so it was a sunset. We were in a little bit of a rush to try and get it done before the sun went down, and so kind of the lesson learned: don't rush into something if the conditions are not right, or if you're in a hurry. Rather just wait, because you'll make mistakes like I did. I was lucky; it was just a few lines, but this was just a flight around the airport, and I was very fortunate to have these two gentlemen out there that could go ahead and capture things. Grand Canyon, wow, this was such a huge opportunity. I got to fly right out of the airport. It's not something that we'll get to do just anytime soon, and you know, it's a controlled airport, so I had to be on an on a radio, and be able to talk to the FAA and so forth. So just a super opportunity. I actually cracked an exhaust. It was so cold, and so I didn't get to fly too far. On my way down to Sedona, I stopped off here in Flagstaff, and as you see, the scenery and the snow, it was actually a fairly warm day, and really got to enjoy this flight. Once again, I just pulled off on the side of the road and saw this opportunity to go fly. And so from there on and down into Sedona, as you see, the temperature is quite different. We got to fly all the way around, and there were, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us pilots that showed up out there. So this was really cool to actually have, and I couldn't have had a nicer flight in a better place to finish off Arizona. So from there I went out to Texas. I was in Austin, Texas, and this was the day before a bunch of guys came out, and so I just wanted to get more comfortable on the snake, and so the conditions were good enough that I could really start to work on some wing overs and some really tight turns, and just really get a good feel for what the snake does. Ironically enough, I did have a landing though where all the air dropped out, and it was a lot of sink, so it was a very important lesson to have very, very early on, and that you know, the air above the trees isn't exactly what it is on the ground sometimes, even if you don't have any rotor. So from there on to Oklahoma. Initial flight was out here in Durant, and as you see from this video, you know, definitely a lesson to be learned here, that as part of your pre-flights, you really want to actually make sure that the fuel cap, if that's what you're using for venting, is properly clean. And so it is part of my routine now to make sure that I actually suck on it, make sure the air can get through, and obviously clean it fairly frequently. As you see, even though I was close to water here, I did actually have an out to my left here where those green fields were. And you know, my one thought looking back on this video was that I really should have just slowed down a little bit. I had some time. I could have squeezed the pump that I can reach on the back of my frame. So I did get a little bit, you know, frustrated here and sort of forced things. And if I just squeezed the throttle a couple more times and relaxed, and as you see, I had all the time. Of course, by this point I was frustrated, and I wasn't thinking. I really could have, once again, squeezed that throttle a couple more times and gone ahead and squeezed the pump, and that might have got me going. But literally, once I landed here, all I did was loosen off the fuel cap so that there was enough air coming in, and it stopped that vacuum, and I was able to you know, land safely here and actually take off once I loosened off the gas cap a little. But you know, once again, this is a really good example about making sure that you always had outs, and I made sure throughout this flight that I had lots of altitude so that I could work with. And as you see here, I could probably have tried a little bit longer to try and get that engine started, but at this point, nice big open field, away from everybody, made good sense here to get on the ground and actually try and solve the problem. Actually landed here slightly crosswind, so this was fairly fast. By the time I reset up and took off, I was actually going from the side. Anyway, I got a number of other good flights in a few other places with lots of other great guys in Oklahoma, and goodness, for the life of me, I forget the name of this airport, but I was here with Jeffrey Miller, who had something to say at the end of it, and just a great sunset flight, and nice and easy.
Excellent. It was so nice right here. I did like 5 touch and goes, stood it up and just kited it, took off again. I couldn't help myself.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Well, I'll wait till the end of this segment. It kind of says itself.
Here in Wisconsin, and sorry, Wisconsin. We're in Kansas. I haven't made it there yet.
No alcohol involved here.
Gee. All right. Well, so we wanted to say that we all support resurgence.
So as you see, this was actually quite a foggy day, and the fog was rolling in and rolling out, and so we actually waited quite a bit of time and then conducted one flight, and I think this one's actually on my second flight. In both cases, you know, we get up into the air, and the next thing, a whole bunch more rolling fog would come in, and at this particular point, I'd actually tried to sort of get up above the fog here and get through this hole. But if you go back and watch the full video, you'll see that I started to hit into some really thick fog, and I literally just the hole closed up on me, and I wasn't able to get through it. And I think, as it turns out, it was a good decision to turn around and come back down here. So did shorten this a fair amount just to get it in the clip, but it was actually a fun flight despite the fact that it required a lot of work. Well, good afternoon. It's December 23rd, and I'm here in Iola, Kansas, which is down towards the southeastern side of Kansas. I'm here with my buddy Dave. Dave served in Iraq back in the early 2000s, and he's exactly the kind of guy that Resurgence PPG is out to help. This is where all the big mistakes. I'd never actually broken a prop until this particular flight, and as you see, I had power on and not enough control of the wing, and actually let off on the power even. So that largely, while there was a little more air and just quite frankly too many mistakes made, did actually damage the frame as well. So it was an expensive day for such a small mistake, I think, in the big picture, but nonetheless a good learning lesson.
Across the nation. Harley Miln is from Walnut Creek, California, and the creator of the 50x Challenge.
New Year's Day 2020. Well, I couldn't have been with a greater bunch of guys, and we got there nice and early, and just an amazing day to go flying. And as you see, the footage really does speak for itself. Everyone was shooting something, and so between Nate, myself, and a couple of the other guys, there's quite a lot of video footage here, which is why there's so much in this particular video. And in fact, some of it even got utilized on some of the news across the country. So you'll see in this next story actually that Winnie used some of that footage, and then that story actually got picked up by a lot of the different stations across the country. So pretty much coast to coast coverage, including Hawaii, then picked up the story. But once again, just a beautiful day here to go flying that morning, and a bunch of us actually landed, refilled up, and went up even longer. So a whole bunch of foot drags there on the sod, and as you see from this, one of the guys really totally has it nailed down.
A California man traveling the country raising money for charities makes a stop right here in Memphis. As Fox 13's Winnie Wright tells us, it's how he's traveling that makes it so interesting.
They say the view is best from the top. For Harley Miln, that couldn't be more true. Miln is a paramotorist traveling and flying across all 50 states.
It really is a trip of a lifetime.
Along the way, Miln hopes to raise $50,000 for charity.
You think that the sport's cool, and what I'm trying to achieve is a lot of fun. The idea is that it inspires individuals and companies to donate to local charities in the state that I'm flying in, and I'd like to raise at least $1,000 in each state.
We caught up with Miln on a very windy Saturday morning in Millington. There, he showed us just how much planning and preparation goes into each and
So
every
the story behind Mississippi here was that I came to the wrong entrance of the airport, and I met David Nail here, who's flying this plane. He has a really interesting story, and he actually has a commercial rating, and did an angel flight in recognition of this trip. So I'm very grateful to him and his contribution towards helping me make my goal. The flight here was relatively short, not a great airport to actually go be flying at because it was fairly busy, but I got this little window where there weren't too many people. Of course, my favorite part here is right after the flight, having everybody come over and the girls trying on the motors, and I don't know, my heart just reminds me of my own daughters, and this was super cool. I had a blast. More fun actually just hanging out here and talking to everybody and getting them to try the motor on. If you look at the original videos, the guys actually tried them on as well and got to feel some power. So it was really just so much fun. So Louisiana, the world of Matt Mignard, I guess. So got to hang out in New Orleans, one of my favorite towns, and got to fly. This was in Alberta, across the way, and this acrobatics plane, I was kind of invading their airspace just a little bit there, so he was fully inverted by the time he saw me. But cool thing was we got to hang out here, and it was almost like a little mini flying with everybody showing up. And then this young man had actually hung out with his dad at another location to go flying, but he ended up coming down here from Mississippi and got his first flight in. And as you'll see from the end of the video here, the pride is just something else, and I can only really imagine just what this was for the two of them. As you see, we got quite a bit of flying in, and the conditions were just absolutely perfect here. And so, you know, the last sort of, I don't know, 45 minutes here, everyone was flying, and then you'll see here in this next clip, Matt Mignard doing what he does best. There you go, full barrel roll, I guess.
Man with a passion for paragliding is taking the sport to all 50 states.
WHNT News 18's Jordan Daphne is caught up with him in Huntsville and has more.
They say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Well, paramotor pilot Harley Miln doesn't just stand.
This was actually a tiny little airfield.
Of motivating others to give back.
For me, it was about inspiring people to do something good to help others in general, and just in recognition of trying to do this tour across the whole country.
He's calling it the 50xChallenge Paramotor Tour. In each state, he wants people to see what he's doing and donate to a local charity of their choice. Strapping into the paramotor like it's a backpack. I got to put it on and was surprised at how light it was. Oh, it's not too bad.
Well, it's not seeing. There you go.
While Miln is enjoying his journey, teaching people about paragliding and inspiring them to support others, he's learning too.
I think it's been a very good reminder that life is really about what you make it.
Because no matter if you are moving forward or standing still, time always flies. In Huntsville, Jordan Daphne, WHNT News 19.
So I spent more time here in Florida than any other state, primarily because I wanted to visit a lot of the different schools that were here. So I started in Pensacola here, and if I remember correctly, started off with Robbie at Fly High, there was Danny Dewitt, and then of course on to Happy Thoughts. Happy Thoughts was really probably the first bigger school that I had been to. I was very impressed with just how organized, and of course a whole bunch of people came out, and one of the things I liked here was, you know, the fact that it's actually on a real airport. I stopped in Dunellen on my way down to Lake Wales. Dunellen's the second aviator location, and then came down here, and honestly I had so much good flying here in Lake Wales it really was quite difficult to leave. I should mention too that I actually did stop off in Zephyr and hung out with London Ivy as well, and flew out of his backyard. There just wasn't enough room in this video to put it all in there, but thanks London for letting me fly out of your backyard. And you know, I got to also hang out with a couple more people in Florida. Let's see on my list here. Oh yes, I shouldn't forget, I hang out with Bo Feldman. He's the guy that did the cross country from Florida all the way out to EAA, and so I saw him in Dunellen, and then of course I met with Travis and Kyle from One Up Adventures, and Shannon and Lorena from Michaels from Four Winds. And you'll see here in a couple clips down to Miami. And I actually didn't get to meet Jose and Javier there. I got to see them down at the Palm Bay Fly-In several weeks later. But as you see here, I just so many clips from Florida. I think there's probably at least 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes of video here just from Florida. Just definitely is kind of a mecca for us in the paramotoring world. Great schools and you know, great places to fly. This is known as the compound, and it's just so many great pilots out here. And for this event, very little carnage by comparison to what I've seen at some other fly-ins, so nicely organized. So I'm here at the venue of the Bad Apples out at Hodges Field, and I got to hang out with Mac, and I really appreciated his hospitality. Since nobody was around, I was kind of concerned I was going to get stuck here. I was trying to beat the weather again, and wasn't going to get a sign-off. But I actually flew from Mac Field out to this little airport, and I got really lucky that there was a pilot out here training a student, and so he not only captured my landing but also captured my takeoff, and also signed my log for me. So it couldn't have worked out more perfectly. It beat the weather, and just a great experience. Yeah, this was the airport, Americas. And I think just about enough fuel to get back. I think I had probably enough for another 20 minutes. So, but either way, was got it in. I'd learned my lesson from the previous day where I got pretty rocked on a takeoff. So it was kind of fun to be able to be up later where the conditions were better. And sometimes really it just pays to rather get a 15 or 20 minute flight in that the conditions are great for, rather than trying to get a longer flight in where it's too early and the conditions aren't as nice. So I believe that was state number 20. South Carolina, this was amazing too. I wasn't sure I was going to get caught up with anybody, but connected with one guy, and the next thing I knew there were 3 or 4 pilots out here, and I think at least 3 of us flew. Once again, this is just the nature of how things go. Almost everywhere I go, I land up meeting such incredible people, and the same was true here for South Carolina, where just out of the blue people show up and come fly. And I guess as long as you can catch the right person in the right local network, it's always a blast to get a bunch of people together. And so we went for a late afternoon flight here, and I think we probably flew for at least an hour and all over the place, and a little wing bump here, and just had a great time. And in fact, eventually landed, refilled up, and went up for pretty much what was a dusk landing. So this is my landing after that last flight, and then you'll see this flight coming on, the last guy coming in. Ever need these flights, definitely hit me up. I got a good contact for you there. So I went on to North Carolina, thanks to Jeff Pearson. He's amazingly networked, and this is Rebel Field. And once again, we had a whole bunch of people come out, including a pilot that I had actually worked with, helped him with a little bit of kiting when he was down at Aviator. And so this was his first flight away from the Aviator field, and we all had such an amazing time here. It was a little bumpy, but overall turned out to be a good day with, I don't know, 3 or 4 of us pilots up here. So Virginia, once again, I was trying to beat the weather here a little, and I was actually on a mission to try and get a few states done fairly quickly, but I tried out this other glider. This is a much older glider used for training, and it was pretty slow, but and here's the guy that I was hanging out with, and I have to, oh, Randy Lambert, that's right. So Randy and I got to fly, and we just had a nice quiet time. The weather there that morning had been perfect and was pretty good here. As you see, this wing is really slow, but this is one of my favorite shots actually of someone else come in. I don't think I actually slowed it down. I think this was actually just how it sort of was in real time. We were both sort of evenly matched, where he was slightly faster than my wing, and so it was just super cool the way the shot came together. And then yeah, we got to do the usual monkeying around and chase each other and look at some of the local scenery out here. So you know, we just literally flew around here probably for 45 minutes or an hour. I came on back down and right at sunset, and just a good day. West Virginia, couldn't have made it out here just in time. Not only did get to take off here with Darian and Ramon, you'll see here in a second, I got to goof off and fly across the river from West Virginia into Ohio. And so I didn't actually touch down in Ohio. I did a foot drag, so it didn't count for anything, but it was kind of fun to make it across the river and drop in there very quickly and then come all the way back. The story I'll tell behind all of this is that when I eventually did land, I think within about 10 maybe 15 minutes of landing, the rain actually came in, so it was kind of a rush to get in and get that done. And from here I was like, well, let me try and beat the weather, and I rushed all the way out to Indiana. And as you'll see from the next segments, the snow kind of got me in a little. So this is with Dave Halcomb, and this is state number 25. So got snowed in the day before, and so I think this was my second day out there. As you see, I got hooked up. So Dave, thanks very much. Hooked me up with some water and some electricity, so that really panned out. But we got a window, and Dave braved it with me, and this was my launch. And we got to fly for a few minutes together, and then come on back down. So while we didn't get any press out, and you know, not a big audience, just the airport manager and Dave here with us, it was still just a great way to cover state number 25. And as you'll see from the next video that I'll produce towards the end of the trip, you know, this is just the first 25. If this was this amazing, I can only imagine what the next 25 are going to be doing for me. So here it is. I'll leave my wrap up as I did before, and that was the first 25. Hey all, I finally had a chance to go ahead and finish this highlights video. If you have not subscribed and clicked on the bell here in YouTube, then please make sure you do that. It's the way to get the most, well, at least the latest released videos. I don't post everything on Facebook and in Instagram, so make sure that you've also liked and follow me in those environments as well, so that you get the latest updates. And if you haven't visited the website 50xchallenge.info, please make sure that you do that as well. You'll find the blog there actually has a whole bunch of information, not only about the trip, but also just sharing sort of how the travel actually transpired, rather than just the highlights from paramotoring. I want to take this moment to actually just thank everybody that's been supporting me along the way, and there are just so many people to mention, any one person by name, but definitely I can't thank everybody enough. The hospitality that I've received, the help with spare parts, and people just going out of their way and really just showing what the paramotor community is all about. So I'm probably going to do a voiceover version of this as well, talking through the trip, and so if you want to see that, definitely hang on there, and I'll try and get it out as quickly as I can. And maybe I'll also go ahead and still do sort of a reflection video that shares more about the emotional side of this trip and sort of how I've dealt with that. So I want to thank everybody and hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you soon.